Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Gran Turismo 7. It's the first set of weekly challenges since update 1.44 and we're going to dive in today to take a look at what's on offer, including the 5 events themselves and the rewards that are on offer for this week. Recently we are on the back of some of the strongest weekly challenges in recent memory, as well as some very fun and enjoyable special events. Especially a highlight for me was the Plymouth Superbird one last week. So let's have an overview of the events themselves. As usual, we've got one of the newer events becoming part of the weekly challenges straight away. That is going to be the European Clubman Cup 600, which takes place at Blue Moon Speedway in Field A Reverse. That was a very enjoyable event, and I did really enjoy the sprint style using the Lamborghini, but we're going to use something a little bit different for this playthrough. Next up we have a new special event featuring the Lamborghini Urus at Fisherman's Ranch, so definitely making use of the off-roading capabilities of that vehicle. Then we move on to the Hypercar parade over at Trial Mountain, before moving on to the VGT Trophy over at Interlagos. Finally, we'll finish up with the World Touring Car 700 over at Raceway Laguna Seca. In terms of the prizes this week, for one event it's going to be a 6-star roulette ticket parts prize. Not really too bothered about that one. For 3 events we're going to get 150,000 credits, which I can't really complain about. And then for 5 events we're going to get the best reward of the bunch, which is a 6-star roulette ticket car reward. So these are typically upwards of the more expensive vehicles in games, and anywhere from 1 million upwards of around about 3 to 4 million credits. So not too bad in terms of what we have on offer here this week. In terms of the events I'm looking forward to the most from this one, it's going to have to be the European Clubman Cup 600 and the special event. The other 3 I'm not really too bothered about, but those first 2 are definitely going to be quite fresh and a bit of a different change. So the European Clubman Cup 600, this takes place at Blue Moon Speedway in Field A. Obviously yesterday for my event guide I used the Lamborghini Urus, which this event typically does aim to do. However, that 600 pp is just a recommendation, it's not set in stone, so we're going to use something a little bit different this time around. This is my 800 pp tuned Audi R8 Coupe V10 Plus, perhaps one of the fastest and best road cars in the game. I really enjoyed this car straight out of the box, and overall it's made even better with some ridiculous upgrades to it. So I'm not usually a fan of the kind of chase the rabbit, you know, sort of sprint car races in GT7. However, I did find that this was one of the better ones that we've ever had in game. I find that the layout is just short enough to get some very sweet lap times in, and just short enough to make sure that the cars don't feel too spread out. There is some nice racing to be had, although this is a typical very quick sprint race with no tyre wear or fuel use. I do find that you can give yourself a challenge if you're aiming towards that 600 limit. Now we've gone a little bit overkill for this one. I've ran it around about 4 or 5 times already, so I kind of just wanted to get it ticked off, and I wanted to try something different, hence the use of the Audi R8 over the Lamborghini Urus. Now in terms of the AI themselves, to be honest, they're not really too tough. There is a few cars to look out for, mainly around about 3 Lamborghinis, so there's the Moira, the Countach and the Lamborghini Urus. There's also Mercedes mixed in there that will be working its way through the grid, but the main AI you'll need to look out for is the Alfa Romeo, which is lightning quick if you're aiming for that 600 limit. However, we're going to get tick number 1 done nice and quickly. 75,000 credits in around about 4 minutes isn't too bad, as well as the 6-star roulette ticket parts ticket. Again, probably the weakest reward that we can really get from these. Next up we have the brand new special event, a new one of its type, focusing on the Lamborghini Urus for a 1-make race. The event's going to take place at Fisherman's Ranch, or as I like to call it, the Nordschleife of the dirt tracks for GT7. Much longer in terms of its length. It's going to be a 2-lap sprint style, but overall this was a very enjoyable event. As you can see, you must use the dirt tyres on this one, and you must use the Lamborghini Urus from 2018. In terms of the AI, I believe all of them are standard with just some customization parts on. Apart from that, I didn't notice any of them being upgraded. I went for a standard one with just the dirt tyres added on, and it was absolutely fine. So just ensure that once you've got the Urus selected, that you head over, stick the dirt tyres on, and you will basically be good to go. If you want to make the event as competitive as possible, I fully recommend using a bog standard Urus. Don't have any upgrades on it, stick the dirt tyres on and stick it on the highest difficulty. This way you can get a nice bit of a challenge without overtaking all of the AI relatively quickly. There's only 12 of you on the track, but it definitely feels like there's more when you're constantly battling with other Lamborghinis. This was a genuinely enjoyable event, and I really do hope that we see more of these put into GT7. There's just not enough of the dirt events, and they're perhaps some of the most fun events in game, especially when we're using some of the more weird and wacky vehicles that you wouldn't typically necessarily use. A lot of the dirt events in GT7 are very much catered towards the Group B series of vehicle, but for me, some of the most fun I have on the dirt is when we've got road cars and things like that tuned with dirt tyres, and we're able to build up our own kind of rally vehicles from there. I really do hope Polyphony start taking advantage of these in the future, as for me, I'd say it's just the best way to run these dirt events. In terms of the AI themselves, they're not too bad to get past. The main thing you want to look for is that insane weight that we have with the Lamborghini. It's big, it's bulky, and when you're hitting the jumps, it's going to land with a massive thud. So just be aware that at times it may start throwing off the balance of the car. You may start heading towards the barriers and such, so just be aware of that. I do recommend just tapping the brakes just before you start lifting off the ground. At that point you can usually keep the car a little bit more stable. Again, I don't think you'll have too many problems with this one. Overall, it isn't too difficult. Getting that event done is going to give us tick number 2 for the week. Now, I didn't actually get the clean race bonus. It was 75k as standard. Obviously, add a bit extra on if you do get that clean race bonus. I ended up with a slight touch on one of the other Lamborghinis, and that completely lost that bonus. Event number 3, this is the Hypercar Parade, obviously for showcasing some of the ridiculous hypercars within inside GT7. It's going to be at one of my favourite tracks of all time, Trial Mountain. Obviously, I would prefer the original layout, but it wouldn't really work with the high speeds that we're seeing Gran Turismo these days. So we're going to use the Aston Martin Valkyrie. This was a car that I genuinely forgot was in the game. It was kind of a big deal when it came in, and it's kind of faded into obscurity, and I think that's mainly because a lot of people haven't bought it because of that ridiculous 4 million credit price tag. So as you can see, we're going to work our way through the grid. This car is absolutely standard apart from the livery, so it doesn't have a custom setup on. However, it is going to make short work of the majority of these hypercars. I really do like these events for showcasing some of the, I guess, more expensive and luxurious hypercars in the game. There's a nice selection to see as you blast past them, but overall the standout for me is the Valkyrie. It's ridiculously fast even in its standard setup. It might be a little bit on the skittish side if you're not really used to Gran Turismo just yet, but you should be able to adjust the handling of this car no problem. And if you want something that's going to get this event done quickly, then you really cannot go wrong with this vehicle. I believe there is a PP cap in place, so just be aware of that. I believe it's in the range of like 800 to 850, so just ensure that you're not bolting over that. I could not remember for the life of me if that was with this one or the VGT Trophy. I know for sure the VGT definitely has a PP cap, but this one may have as well. But definitely choose something a bit ridiculous and just go out there, hit the track, as this one is basically just a glorified track day for some of the most fastest cars in GT7. Because of the format of this race, again, we're not worrying about fuel or tyre life or anything like that, so just choose the car you're comfortable with, hit the track, and you'll get this one done no problem. I don't really feel like anyone will have much of a hard time getting this one done and completed. I managed to get mine done inside 9 minutes, and in all honesty, it was very, very easy. Once I'd taken the lead, the rest of the AI just started to drop back, and I never really saw them again. However, this one does have a decent payout, 150,000 credits for 9 minutes work, so really not too bad in the grand scheme of things. And it's also going to give us tick number 3 and 150,000 credits for those free tick bonuses, as well as our daily reward as well. Next up is the VGT Trophy over at Interlagos. In terms of these events, I genuinely do like them. They're a bit of a guilty pleasure for me when it comes to GT7 events. I'm not the biggest fan of VGTs, but I do find that when I run these, I start seeing cars that I might have kind of overlooked, and it makes me kind of go back and want to use them. So we're using one of the Alpines here. In terms of the car itself, it has to be built to an 850 pp spec, and to be honest, the Alpine was super easy to get there. It didn't require any ballast or detuning. All I had to do was just alter the aero so it was most at the back and least at the front, and you get a nice speedy build that has some very strangely long gears. That was the first thing I noticed with this car. Again, because of the format, we're not worrying about tyre life or fuel usage, so don't worry about that. Just pick any of them you want. I know a lot of people do have their personal preferences, especially when it comes to VGTs or set PP limits. For me, I just like using cars that I may have originally overlooked, so it was a no-brainer to jump in the Alpine. It's a car that I've just not used that much, and it gave me a good excuse to just kind of make use of this vehicle. So overall, to be honest, you're not going to have much trouble. The AI themselves are relatively slow, apart from a couple of them that are kind of out front. I'll find that probably position 3 upwards are the ones that are going to give you the most bother if you are struggling. If not, then to be honest, you're probably going to breeze past them in no time. 7 laps is plenty of time to get these moves done. As you can see, towards the end of the second lap, I'm already up to P3, and then we have a bit of a jump in the overall gap before we get to the front 2 vehicles. On lap 3, I got the move done down the inside of the Porsche, and it was job done. The only thing you need to watch out with that Porsche is that it is very, very quick in a straight line, so just be aware of that on the straights, that it may catch you if you don't have a car that is capable of hitting those high speeds. Overall, we're going to get this one done no problem at all, and that is a relatively easy tick number 4 of the week. The payout for this one, once again, not too bad, around about 10 minutes work for 132,000 credits with that clean race bonus. So with that done and dusted, let's move on to the final event of the week, the World Touring Car 700 over at Raceway Laguna Seca. Perhaps one of these shorter 700 events. You should get this one done no problem at all. Now, a lot of people will probably go for a race car for this one, but for me, I went to my usual 700 pp car, which is actually going to be the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution 3. Again, my favourite 700 build that I've ever created. I'll probably have a link to it down in the description below if you do want to check this one out. It's an insanely reliable car. Now, to begin with, as we're starting to weave our way through the traffic and some of the slower back markers, we're going to keep it at fuel mix 1 for around about a lap or so before turning it to fuel mix 6 and just stretching out that fuel till around about just over the midway point. That's going to be the sweet spot. Again, it does seem that the tyre life and the fuel usage is massively boosted up in terms of this event. Although it's very, very short, it basically does force you to pit, as most of the cars that you'll test here will just completely chew up their tyres. Obviously, apart from the typical Mazdas and rotary engines that are insanely good on fuel and insanely good on tyre life. The Bulgari may also be a good choice here, but for me, that is just a far too boring car to drive at an event like this, where you really want to be absolutely smashing it down the corkscrew. So we've turned the engine down. At this point, we're at fuel mix 6, and we're continuing to get the moves done. We're around about halfway up the grid at this point, just moving up past the Lancer there, getting it down the inside and continuing on. A little bit later on lap 3, we're again moving up towards the podium positions. We're going to get the moves done before the corkscrew, get ourselves down and continue on. Just monitoring that fuel usage and short shifting if we need to. If you don't already run a manual transmission in this game, I fully recommend it. It will massively assist you in conserving fuel, especially in terms of longer runs. So we're eventually going to get the lead on the Suzuki here. The car was just kind of plotting around out front. We're going to try and go around the inside, get the cut back, and finally try and get that move done. The Suzuki does defend it quite well, but we're eventually going to find that little gap, get it done, beat him on the brakes, and then finally we have taken the lead at the midway point. Now we do have a bit of extra fuel left, so we're going to go to the end of lap 6. At this point we're going to pit in. As you can see, the front tyres starting to chew themselves up, so we're going to take a new set of racing mediums as well as filling the tank to full. The main reason for this is I don't want to be pottering around in fuel mix 6 anymore. I want to turn the engine up and just get on to finish off this race. Again, if you're using a race car, whilst it might be a bit slower on overall lap time pace, you'll probably find that you don't need to pit as early as I am here, and you probably won't need to conserve your fuel as much either, or probably even the tyre life. But again, like I mentioned, it is turned up a little bit here, so do expect a bit more in terms of extreme wear than what you'd typically see if it was on the lower wear rate. So again, it is altered between the 700 events. It isn't always set in stone. It's not the same across the entire series for the likes of Le Mans, and here it will be different depending on the track. And because this is shorter, it does seem that Polyphony themselves has gone ahead and basically just turned it up so that you are basically forced to pit at least for tyres, if not fuel as well. So we're going to come down that big long sloping pit lane, and we're going to finally get ourselves out just behind the Lancer Evo in P8. So as you can see, we've got past the Evo. We're going to push on, and the majority of the cars are then going to begin to pit at the end of lap 7. So we've gone for the undercut. We're going to then push on, and as you can see, as if you look on the left hand side in a minute, as we go past the exit of the pit lane, the Suzuki's just going to come out. That was the leading car prior. As you can see, there is a car again up in front, which is the Mazda, which is insanely good on fuel consumption. That one will typically pit at the end of lap 8, so just be aware of that. Don't worry too much if you find yourself, a few positions down after your pit stop. Come the end of the race, we did push out a 30-second lead as the car ran out of fuel as we went across the line, but that is going to give us tick number 5 for the week. And obviously alongside it, it's going to give us our free car reward. In terms of the payout, it's not great for this one. To say it's a bit of a longer event than the previous two, it pays out roughly the same even with that clean race bonus. However, we do get that sweet 6-star roulette ticket car reward. So let's dive in and open up all of our tickets for this, I guess, day or week, whatever you want to call it. So we've got a daily mileage reward. We've got a 3-star this time around, not too great. And it's again going to give us a pretty poor reward, receiving 5,000 credits for that one. Again, I'm not really too bothered about that at all. I'd have much rather had one of the cars and then sold them on. Then we have the 6-star parts ticket. Again, this is for event number 1, so getting one event done is going to reward you with this one. Most of the time it is a part for a car that you're not going to be too bothered about, and that is what's going to happen to me here. So as you can see, we've got stroke up S for the SFR racing concept. Not bothered about that one. We're then going to add the 150,000 credits to the account, and then we're going to open up our 6-star roulette ticket car ticket. This is perhaps the best reward of the bunch, and we typically do see it just after the game is updated. Now, I've got the Red Bull the last 2 times, but this time we do get the Aston Martin VGT, one of the better VGTs in games, and absolutely fantastic for 600 pp Tokyo. So having a fresh one ready to run is no problem at all to me. So let me know what you think of the weekly challenges. A big thank you to all of my members listed on screen now. Your support means the absolute world to me. Thank you for keeping this channel going, and a big thank you to the viewers at home who have watched this video. Take care, guys. Have a great day. Peace.